Last week, there was a dance competition in Seattle, Washington, where one of the teams that was participating was precluded or asked not to compete because the uniforms that they wore triggered, quote unquote, some people in the audience and made them feel unsafe and threatened. It's the Borderline Dance Company. So much for the name. But I want to show you a picture of the uniform. Lord Benjamin, if you can put that picture up, let's show the audience. So this is the Borderline Dance Company. And if you notice, their uniforms are of the American flag. So it's the American flag that triggered the people hosting it. It was the Emerald City Hoedown, and it was the Rain Dance Company, which is some LGBTQ company, and they were asked or told that they could not compete because of their uniforms. So we've now gotten to the point where the American flag triggers people to feel unsafe. I guess since we now live in America where on U.S. soil you can chant death to America and that's okay, then the symbol of America and its freedoms triggering people shouldn't come as a surprise to most people in all of this. But let's remember where most of this started, right? We go back to Michelle Obama, former First Lady, who said, "I never felt proud of my country until my husband was elected." So disrespecting your country, those traditional values, those American freedoms, of course, they're going to trigger people. But let's talk about the whole concept of being triggered. So what is it? So triggered means that what you say or what you do is going to make me feel unsafe, right? That's the whole concept here of triggering. So my first question in all of this is, why are the Democrats the only ones, or the progressives, that are allowed to be triggered? Right? Back in the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter protests, remember those, mostly peaceful? I felt threatened by those. I felt unsafe. I felt uncomfortable. The defund the police protests, right? I felt unsafe. We all felt unsafe. We all felt uncomfortable. We were triggered, were we not? And as recently as today and all over the country, you see these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protests going on all over the country to greater or lesser degree. They shut down the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday, which, by the way, is a federal crime. Does anyone think anyone's going to jail for this? I suspect. They shut down the access roads to O'Hare Airport. There have been protests, some violent, some not, chanting "Death to America" around the country. So why is it that only the Democrats are the ones that can be triggered in all of this? And if you really want to take this to its logical extension, the political show trials of Donald Trump. Now, I don't care whether you're for Trump or you're against Trump or what you think of Trump, right? But these political trials for an opponent, a political opponent, which are basically, no pun intended, trumped up charges, don't harbor well for America. Because if it can happen to Donald Trump, it can happen to any of us. And I don't care what party you're in, but that should be a concern for everyone. We've gone to a point where it's upside down. Because remember, we grew up with, most of us, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, right? The concept for that is that it doesn't matter what you say about me. What I think about myself, what I feel about myself, that I'm responsible for my own feelings of safety, has now been inverted. It's now our responsibility to make sure everyone else doesn't feel threatened or everyone else doesn't feel unsafe or uncomfortable. Remember, this goes back to what we've always talked about, which is safe spaces on campus, and then the whole campus had to be safe, all the other nonsense that this wokeism has been throwing at everyone. So it's now at the point where the other person is responsible for my feelings as opposed to me being responsible for my own feelings. Not only is that a child's response, that's a victim response, and we have become a victim culture in all of this. Let's not forget, the Constitution of the United States has enshrined checks and balances to protect the minority against what was concerning potentially the tyranny of the majority, right? But it didn't give minority rights that trumped, no pun intended, or perhaps pun intended, rights over the majority. We've now come to the point where it has become the tyranny of the minority, that the minority in this country who are now wielding the levers of power. Thank you, President Barack Obama, because now they wield the levers of power in government. They wield the levers of power in academia. They wield the levers of power in the culture wars, in the media, right? And we can go back to the whole NPR thing that was just in the news, which anybody really surprised that NPR has 0 Republicans, is totally Democratic leaning? I mean, tell me something we haven't known for 10 years. Right? Just ridiculous. But understand, when you hear the word triggered, this is all about power. Who has it, who wants to keep it, and who doesn't want to give it up. And we really have come to the point, and you see it in the pro-Hamas protests in the streets. Doesn't matter. They're not going to enforce federal law. The term triggered, next time you hear it, understand that it's about power. And in this case, it's the power that now the tyranny of the minority has over the rest of the country, and they don't want to give it up. To that dance team, the borderline dance team or dance troupe, whatever they're called on the West Coast, God bless you. You keep standing up for America. You keep standing up for patriotism. And I understand, having just looked online, that you were invited to a dance competition or a dance convention to represent America in Normandy in 2025. Good for you. Triggered. Just remember the word. And that's the monologue.